The stars stretched across the black void of space like diamonds scattered on silk. Inside the bridge of the human ship Endeavour, Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair, watching the peaceful emptiness outside. His crew worked quietly at their stations, checking systems and monitoring the usual signals that filled space. Earth had joined the Galactic Union 15 years ago. Back then, most aliens thought humans were strange. They came from a world the galaxy called a Class 12 death world. This meant Earth was one of the most dangerous planets known to exist. The weather could kill. The animals could kill. Even some of the plants could kill. Most alien species came from garden worlds where the biggest danger was a bad storm. Jake had been in space for 8 years now. He commanded 43 humans aboard the Endeavour. The ship was not built for fighting. It was an exploration vessel with some weapons added later, but it was fast and his crew knew what they were doing. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez sat at the communication station. She was young but good at her job. She monitored all the radio frequencies and kept track of every ship in their sector. On this Tuesday afternoon, ship time, she picked up something unusual. Her screen lit up with an emergency signal. The voice that came through sounded terrified even through the universal translator that changed alien languages into English. This is the cargo vessel Stellar Wind. We are under attack by Kronith raiders, requesting immediate assistance. Our shields are failing. We have 300 civilian passengers aboard. Please, anyone who can hear this, we need help now. Amy turned to Jake immediately. Captain, we have a distress call. A Valaxian transport under attack. Jake stood up and walked to her station. He studied the information on her screen. The Stellar Wind was a big cargo ship owned by the Valaxians. These aliens were peaceful merchants who never bothered anyone. The attackers were Kronith pirates. Intelligence reports said they had at least 4 heavily armed cruisers in their fleet. Distance? Jake asked. His first officer, Lieutenant Dan Harper, checked the navigation computer. 18 minutes at maximum speed, sir. But the nearest Union patrol ship is closer. The Zalanthian battlecruiser Morning Light is only 12 minutes away. Jake nodded slowly. The Zalanthians had some of the biggest warships in the galaxy. Their ships were 3 times the size of the Endeavour and carried weapons that could destroy a small moon. It made sense to wait for them to handle the situation. Then Amy spoke again. Her voice was tight with worry. Sir, another message just came through. They say they have children aboard. The Kronith are cutting through their hull with plasma torches. They are preparing to board the ship. Everyone on the bridge knew what that meant. The Kronith did not take prisoners for ransom money. They took people to fight in their illegal combat arenas, children included. Jake made his decision in 2 seconds. Helm, maximum burn. Get us there as fast as possible. Amy, send a message to the Morning Light. Tell them we are going in and we need backup. Dan looked at his captain. Sir, the regulations say we should wait for the primary response vessel to arrive first. I know what the regulations say, Lieutenant, but 18 minutes is a very long time when you have pirates cutting into your ship. Jake walked back to his command chair. Besides, those regulations were written by species who do not understand what happens when you threaten children in front of humans. The bridge crew exchanged quick glances. They all knew their captain was right. High command might disagree later, but that was a problem for later. The Endeavour's engines roared to life. The ship pushed forward faster than the safety manuals recommended. Inside the engine room, the temperature gauges climbed higher and higher. Warning lights blinked on panels throughout the ship. Jake opened a communication channel to the entire crew. All hands, battle stations. We have civilians under attack by Kronith raiders. I know we are not a warship. I know we are outnumbered and outgunned. But we are not going to sit here and let innocent people die just because the numbers do not look good on paper. We are humans. We do not abandon people who need help. Down in engineering, Chief Mechanic Lisa Grant started moving power from life support systems to the weapons and shields. She muttered about safety protocols while she broke every single one of them. The engines needed more power, and she was going to give it to them no matter what the manual said. In the medical bay, Dr. Paul Chen began preparing for casualties. He set up trauma stations and made sure he had enough medical supplies. He knew what was coming would be ugly. In the armory, Security Chief Kyle Barnes handed out weapons to anyone with combat training. On a human ship, that meant almost everyone. Humans learned to fight young. Their world had taught them that lesson over and over again throughout their evolution. The Endeavour raced through space toward a fight it had no business joining. Inside the ship, 43 humans prepared themselves for battle. They checked their equipment. They ran through emergency procedures in their minds. They thought about the 300 civilians who were counting on someone, anyone to help them. Outside the ship, space remained cold and empty. Stars shined with their ancient light. Nebulas glowed with colors that human eyes found beautiful. And somewhere ahead, 4 pirate ships surrounded a helpless transport vessel like predators around wounded prey. Jake watched the tactical display count down the minutes. 16 minutes to contact, 15 minutes, 14. Each second felt like an hour. Each minute stretched longer than it should. He thought about the Valaxian children hiding somewhere inside that transport. He thought about their parents trying to protect them with nothing but their own bodies. The galaxy had rules about when to fight and when to wait. It had protocols and procedures and chains of command. All of those rules made sense when you had time to think, when you had time to calculate odds and wait for the perfect moment. But Jake Morrison was human. His species had not survived on a death world by waiting for the perfect moment. They had survived by acting when action was needed, by helping each other, by refusing to let fear stop them from doing what was right. The countdown continued. 10 minutes, 9 minutes, 8, all systems ready? Dan reported from the helm station. Weapons charged and ready. Kyle added from weapons control. Medical bay prepared for casualties, Paul said over the intercom. Engineering running hot but stable, Lisa reported. We can maintain maximum speed for 20 minutes before things start breaking. Jake looked at his crew. They were ready. The Endeavor was ready. In a few minutes they would drop out of faster-than-light travel and face 4 enemy cruisers with nothing but their small ship and their determination. Good work, everyone, Jake said quietly. Let us go save some lives. The Endeavor dropped out of faster-than-light travel and the scene ahead made Jake's stomach turn. The stellar wind hung in space like a wounded animal. 3 large holes had been punched through its hull. Air and debris sprayed out into the vacuum. 4 dark shapes surrounded it. The Kronith cruisers were ugly ships, all sharp angles and weapon ports. They continued firing into the defenseless transport even though it could not fight back. They are still shooting at a ship that cannot defend itself, Amy said. Her voice was cold with anger. Jake studied the tactical display on his screen. 2 of the Kronith ships had already attached long tubes to the side of the stellar wind. These were boarding tubes. The pirates were already inside the transport. The raid was happening right now. Weapons status? Jake asked. Kyle had moved from the armory to the weapons control station. Railguns charged and ready. Missile tubes loaded. We have about 6 minutes of continuous fire before the systems overheat. Our shields are at maximum power, but Captain, they will not hold long against 4 cruisers. Then we better make those 6 minutes count. Jake looked at the positions of the enemy ships. Amy, broadcast on all frequencies. Tell the Kronith they have 1 chance to leave peacefully. The message went out in a dozen different languages. The response from the Kronith fleet commander was laughter. It came through the speakers as a harsh clicking sound that the translator turned into mockery. 1 human ship? You are either very brave or very stupid. Leave now and we will let you run away. We have no interest in fighting Deathworld primitives today. Jake smiled, but there was no humor in it. Well, we gave them a chance. Target the boarding tubes on the nearest cruiser. Kyle, cut those tubes off before they can send more raiders inside. The Endeavor surged forward at attack speed. For the first time, the Kronith fleet learned what human weapons looked like in action. The railgun rounds were simple chunks of metal accelerated to incredible speeds. They were not fancy, but they hit harder than almost anything else in space. The first burst of railgun fire caught the Kronith cruiser's boarding tube and tore it completely off. The second burst punched through the cruiser's energy shield and ripped a huge gash along its hull. Metal peeled away like paper. Direct hit, Kyle reported with satisfaction. Their shields are failing. But now all 4 Kronith ships were turning toward the Endeavor. Their weapons came to life, spitting energy bolts and missiles. The human ship shook as enemy fire slammed into their shields. Red warning lights appeared across Jake's command display. Evasive pattern Delta 3. Jake ordered calmly. Dan's hands moved across the helm controls. The Endeavor twisted through space in a pattern that would have killed most alien crews. The ship turned and rolled and accelerated in ways that put enormous pressure on everyone inside. Humans could survive it because they evolved on a high-gravity world. Their bodies were built to handle stress that would turn other species into paste. The Endeavor wove between incoming weapons fire. Her railguns kept shooting, sending metal death toward the enemy. Another Kronith cruiser took damage to its engine section. The pirate ship began to drift sideways, unable to maintain its position in the fight. "How are our shields holding?" Jake asked. "Down to 60%, Kyle answered. "But sir, you need to see this." He put a video feed on the main screen. Through one of the holes in the Stellar Wind's hull, they could see inside the transport. Kronith raiders in heavy armor were herding Valaxian civilians down a corridor. The Valaxians were tall and thin with blue skin that seemed to shimmer. They moved slowly, their peaceful nature making them easy victims for the armed pirates. A small Valaxian child stumbled and fell down. A Kronith raider raised his weapon toward the child. Jake did not even think. "Kyle, precision shot. Take out that raider, right now." "Sir, that is an incredibly difficult shot. We are moving at combat speed and the target is inside a ship with a small opening." "I know what I am asking. Can you do it?" There was a half-second pause. "Yes, sir." The railgun fired once. The metal round flew through space, passed through the breach in the Stellar Wind's hull, and hit the Kronith raider in the center of his chest. The pirate dropped instantly. The other raiders froze in confusion, looking around for a threat they could not see. "Message sent," Jake said quietly. "Now let us finish this fight. Amy, how long until the morning light arrives?" 7 minutes, sir." "Then we hold for 7 minutes." Jake opened the ship-wide communication channel again. "All hands, we have their attention now. We need to keep it until our backup arrives. Engineering, give me everything you can. Medical, get ready for wounded. Everyone else, remember your training. We are doing the impossible right now. Let us make it look easy." The Endeavor continued its deadly dance through space. One small human ship was holding off 4 pirate cruisers. Every second they bought was another second the civilians aboard the Stellar Wind stayed alive. Every shot they fired was another message to the Kronith. These people are protected. The human crew worked with perfect coordination. Dan flew the ship like it was an extension of his own body. Kyle timed every shot to match their movement patterns. Amy monitored enemy communications and warned them when the pirates tried to coordinate their attacks. Lisa kept the engines running far beyond their rated capacity, stealing power from every system that was not immediately necessary. Down in medical, Paul prepared for casualties that had not arrived yet. The Endeavor was taking hits, but the crew was still safe, still fighting, still refusing to back down. On the lead Kronith cruiser, Commander Vexthor stared at his tactical display with growing disbelief. The human ship should have been destroyed by now. His fleet had terrorized this sector for months. No single vessel had ever stood against them. Yet this tiny ship kept dodging, shooting, and surviving. "How are they moving like that?" his tactical officer hissed. "Those maneuvers should kill their crew." Vexthor had heard rumors about humans and their death world. He had dismissed them as exaggerations. Now he was not so sure. The battle had been going on for 4 minutes that felt like 4 hours. The Endeavor's shields were failing. Warning alarms filled the bridge with urgent sounds. Damage reports scrolled across screens faster than anyone could read them. But the crew kept fighting. Jake watched the tactical display count down. 3 minutes until the morning light arrived. 3 minutes felt like forever. "Shields at 40%, Kyle reported. His voice stayed calm despite the situation. "We have small cracks forming in the port generator. How long can we hold?" Jake asked. 3 minutes, maybe 4. After that, we start taking direct hits to the hull. Jake checked the time again. The morning light was still 3 minutes away. They needed to survive just a little bit longer. "Amy, tell them to hurry." The communications officer's face was tight with concentration. "Sir, I am getting messages from inside the Stellar Wind. The Valaxian crew is trying to seal the doors between the raiders and the civilian refugees." "Are they succeeding?" "Some of them. But sir, the Kronith are using plasma cutters on the sealed doors. The Valaxians do not have any weapons. They cannot fight back." Jake felt the weight of command pressing down on him. They could not board the Stellar Wind themselves, not while keeping 4 cruisers busy. But they could not just watch the Valaxians get slaughtered either. An idea formed in his mind. It was crazy, but crazy seemed to work for humans. "Kyle, do we have any breaching charges in our inventory?" The security chief understood immediately. "We have 4 magnetic mines, yes sir. But to get close enough to attach them to the Kronith ships, we would have to drop our shields." "Not to the ships," Jake said, "to their boarding tubes." If we can blow those tubes, we cut off the raiders already inside from getting reinforcements. Maybe give the Valaxians a fighting chance. Dan looked back from the helm. Sir, that is a suicide run. We would have to come to a complete stop right next to their hulls. Only for 3 seconds. Can you do it? Dan smiled. It was the kind of smile that would have scared most aliens. For 3 seconds? I can do anything for 3 seconds. The plan was insane. That made it perfect for humans. The Endeavor broke from its defensive pattern and accelerated straight at the nearest Kronith cruiser. The pirate ship's weapons tracked them and fired everything they had. The human ship's shields flared bright blue and started to fail. Shields at 15%, Kyle called out. Almost there, Dan said. His hands stayed steady on the controls even though the ship was shaking hard enough to rattle teeth. They came alongside the Kronith cruiser and matched its speed for exactly 3 seconds. In that tiny window of time, Kyle launched 2 magnetic mines. They stuck to the boarding tubes with heavy metallic clangs. The Endeavor was already pulling away when the mines exploded. The tubes were severed and the Kronith raiders inside them were blown out into space. 2 tubes down, 2 to go, Jake said. Take us around. They repeated the maneuver on the second Kronith ship with boarding tubes attached to the stellar wind. This time the pirates were ready for them. They concentrated all their fire on the Endeavor. The human ship's shields failed completely. The last volley of enemy fire tore directly into their hull. Alarms screamed across the bridge. Hull breach on deck 3, Amy reported quickly. Emergency bulkheads are holding. Mines away, Kyle said. 2 more boarding tubes exploded into pieces of metal and fire. The Kronith fleet commander was screaming now. His angry clicks and hisses came through loud and clear even through the universal translator. He had lost his boarding parties. He had lost his easy prey. He had lost his reputation as an unstoppable raider, all because of one human ship that refused to die. Sir, the morning light just dropped out of faster-than-light travel, Amy announced. For the first time since the battle began, she smiled. And they brought friends. On the main screen, the massive Zalanthian battlecruiser appeared. 3 destroyer escorts flanked it on both sides. The morning light was a beautiful ship with elegant curves and gleaming armor. It made everything else in the area look tiny by comparison. The Zalanthian captain's voice came through the communication channel. It was smooth and cultured even in the middle of a battle. Kronith vessels, this is Commander Zeltaris of the Morning Light. You are ordered to power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will be met with overwhelming force. Commander Vexthor looked at his tactical display. 4 damaged cruisers against a battlecruiser and 6 escorts. His shields were nearly gone. 2 of his ships could barely move, and somewhere out there was a human ship that had fought all 4 of them and survived. The choice was obvious. All ships retreat, he ordered. Maximum speed. Jump to faster than light as soon as possible. The Kronith fleet turned and ran. They jumped to faster than light travel the moment they were far enough away to do it safely. They left behind their boarding parties, their dead, and any claim they had to controlling this sector. Aboard the Endeavor, the crew let out a collective breath they had not known they were holding. Status report, Jake ordered. He finally allowed himself to lean back in his chair. The reports came in one by one. Shields were completely down. Hull was breached in 2 places. Engines were running on backup power systems. 17 crew members had minor injuries, but everyone was alive, and so were the 300 Valaxians aboard the Stellar Wind. Captain Morrison, Commander Zeltaris's voice came through the speakers. That was either the bravest or most foolish thing I have witnessed in 30 years of military service. Perhaps it was both, Jake smiled tiredly. We just could not let those civilians wait the extra few minutes, Commander. It is not in our nature. So I am learning, the Zalanthian said. His tone suggested he was impressed despite himself. We are sending rescue teams to the Stellar Wind now. Your ship appears to need some attention as well. We will manage. It is not the first time we have had to patch holes in our hull. Jake looked around his bridge at his crew. They were battered and exhausted but still standing. It probably will not be the last time either. 3 hours after the battle ended, repair crews from both the Endeavor and the Morning Light worked together to save the Stellar Wind. Cutting torches glowed bright as they sliced through twisted metal. Medical shuttles moved back and forth, carrying injured Valaxians to the better-equipped medical facilities on the Zalanthian battlecruiser. Jake stood in a corner of his ship that still had working computer systems. The main bridge was being repaired along with most of Deck 3. Lisa had told him repairs would take 3 hours. which meant she would probably finish in 2.5 because engineers always added extra time to their estimates. Commander Zeltaris appeared on the communication screen. His body was made of a crystalline substance that caught the light and made him look like he was glowing. The Zelanthians were silicon-based life forms, completely different from carbon-based humans. They were ancient and wise, with a culture built on honor and proper protocol. Captain Morrison, I have sent my initial report to Galactic Union Command. They want a full report from you as well. I suspect they will spend much of their time asking why you engaged 4 cruisers with a science vessel. Jake shrugged. Science vessel with weapons, Commander. That is an important distinction. The Zelanthian's body rippled in a way that might have been amusement. Indeed. I must admit, when I received your message that you were engaging the enemy, I thought you had misunderstood the tactical situation. 4 Kronith cruisers against 1 small human vessel seemed impossible. It was impossible. We just did it anyway. Jake looked at the damage reports on his screen. How are the Valaxians doing? They are frightened but alive thanks to your intervention. The civilian casualties would have been terrible if you had waited for our arrival. The Kronith boarding parties were already beginning to separate families when you destroyed their reinforcement tubes. Zeltaris paused. The captain of the Stellar Wind wants to speak with you. Put her through. The screen changed to show a Valaxian woman. She was tall and graceful, with skin that shifted between shades of deep blue and purple. Her eyes were large and expressive, filled with gratitude. Captain Morrison, I am Captain Linvara of the Stellar Wind. I wanted to thank you personally for what you did today. You saved 300 lives, including my daughter's life. Jake felt something warm in his chest. I am glad we arrived in time, Captain. How are your people doing? As well as can be expected. Many have never experienced violence before. We Valaxians are a peaceful species. We have no military, no weapons, no concept of war beyond what we read in history books. When the Kronith came, we had no way to fight back. Her color shifted to something darker and sadder. We could only hide and hope someone would help us. That is not weakness, Jake said firmly. That is wisdom. The universe needs more people who choose peace. Linvara's color brightened slightly. You are kind to say so. But I must ask, Captain Morrison. Your species comes from a death world. You are classified as dangerous. Why did you risk your ship and crew for strangers? Jake looked around at his crew. They were still working despite being exhausted. Lisa was arguing with a Zelanthian engineer about the best way to seal a hull breach. Paul was helping alien medical teams understand Valaxian biology. Amy was translating between a dozen different species, all trying to coordinate the rescue effort. Because that is what humans do, Jake said simply. We look out for each other even when each other includes people we have never met before. Life on Earth was hard. We learned early that we survive together or we do not survive at all. A beautiful philosophy, Linvara said softly. I hope it spreads throughout the Union. After the call ended, Jake found Dan on Deck 3 helping the repair crews. His first officer looked up from the tool he was using to weld metal plates together. Regulations say the first officer should not be doing manual labor. Sir? Regulations also say we should not engage 4 cruisers alone. How are we doing? Hull integrity is at 85% and getting better. Lisa says we can travel to the nearest starbase for proper repairs. All casualties are minor. We got lucky, Captain. Luck had nothing to do with it. That was good flying, good shooting, and good engineering. Jake watched the repair work for a moment. Union Command is going to ask a lot of questions. Let them ask. We did the right thing. Jake smiled. Yes, we did. Across the fleet, the story was already spreading through communication channels and social networks. 1 human ship had held off 4 Kronith cruisers to protect civilians. The Deathworlders had not calculated the odds. They had not waited for permission. They had simply seen people in trouble and decided that was reason enough to act. In the Zelanthian destroyer escort Morning Star, a junior officer named Kelthas was talking with his commander about the battle. I do not understand their reasoning. They should have waited for us. That would have been the smart choice. His commander was a veteran of 40 years. He nodded slowly. Smart is a luxury you have when there is time. The humans understood something we sometimes forget. Sometimes the right choice and the smart choice are not the same thing. But they could have been destroyed. Yes. And they knew that. They came anyway. That is what makes them dangerous. Not their weapons or their ships, but their willingness to face impossible odds for people they do not even know. 3 weeks after the battle at the Stellar Wind, the story had spread to every corner of the Galactic Union. The footage had been shared on every news network, every social media platform, every communication channel in known space. Everyone had seen it. One human ship holding off 4 Kronith cruisers, performing maneuvers that should have killed the crew, taking damage that should have destroyed the vessel, refusing to back down until the civilians were safe. The Kronith pirates had gone silent. Commander Vexthor and his fleet had retreated to the outer rim of explored space. For the first time in months, the pirate raids had stopped. Word among criminals was clear: stay away from ships with human escorts. The Deathworlders had made their point with bullets and determination. Jake Morrison sat in a conference room on Starbase, Unity. The massive orbital station served as the Galactic Union's headquarters in this sector of space. Across from him sat Admiral Crixonar, a Zelanthian flag officer with over 60 years of command experience. The Admiral's crystalline body reflected the starlight coming through the large windows. "Captain Morrison, I have read your report 7 times. Each time I find myself more impressed and more concerned." "Concerned, sir? Your actions broke several Union regulations about proper response procedures and chain of command. You engaged a superior enemy force without authorization. You risked your crew on a mission that was not technically your responsibility." The Admiral paused. "You also saved 300 lives and sent a message to every pirate in this sector that civilians under Union protection are not easy targets. So I find myself facing a problem." Jake waited quietly. He had known this conversation was coming. "By regulation, I should punish you, perhaps even remove you from command. By conscience, I should praise you and use your actions as a training example for other captains." The Admiral's body shifted as light played across its surface. "What would you do in my position, Captain?"
"Honestly, sir,
"I would ignore the regulations. They were written by people who had time to think and calculate and make the perfect decision. But in combat, you do not have that luxury. You make the best choice you can with the information you have, and you accept the consequences." "And you are prepared to accept the consequences of your decision?" "I am, sir. I would make the same choice again tomorrow." The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. "The Galactic Council has been debating humanity's role in the Union since your species joined 15 years ago. Some aliens fear you, some admire you, some simply do not understand you." He gestured toward the stars beyond the window. "But after the Stellar Wind incident, there is one thing everyone agrees on. When humans answer a distress call, they answer with everything they have. With respect, sir, is that not what everyone should do? In a perfect universe, yes. But we do not live in a perfect universe, Captain. We live in one where peaceful species like the Valaxians have no way to defend themselves, where pirates hunt the weak, where fear and calculation often win over compassion." The Admiral's body grew brighter. "You are not being punished, Captain Morrison. You are being promoted. Starting immediately, you are now Commander Morrison. The Endeavor is being reassigned to rapid response duties." Jake blinked in surprise. "Sir, the Council has decided that humanity's tendency to rush toward danger instead of away from it has value. You and several other human ships will form a rapid response force. Your job will be to answer distress calls in dangerous areas. You will have authorization to engage threats as you see fit without waiting for approval from command." The Admiral stood up. "Congratulations, Commander. You wanted the rules thrown out. The Council has agreed." After the meeting, Jake found his crew waiting in the Starbase's observation lounge. They had all been given time off during the Endeavor's repairs, but most had stayed near the ship. They were unwilling to leave while their home was being fixed. When they saw Jake enter the room, they all stood up. "Well?" Dan asked. "We got promoted," Jake said with a smile. "All of us. And we have a new assignment." Lisa grinned. "Please tell me it involves more impossible situations. I have gotten really good at keeping the engines running past their safety limits." "Actually, that is exactly what it involves." Jake activated the room's holographic display and showed them the official orders. "We are forming a rapid response unit. Us and 5 other human ships. Our job is to answer distress calls and hold the line until the big warships arrive." Amy frowned slightly. "So they are officially allowing what we did. They are recognizing that sometimes the right response is not the calculated one. Sometimes you need people who will act first and worry about the odds later." Jake looked around at his crew. "They are counting on us to be human about it," Kyle laughed. "Be human about it? I like that. When do we start?" "As soon as the Endeavor is repaired and resupplied. 2 days, maybe 3. Paul raised his coffee cup. To humanity, then. May we always be too stupid to know when we are outmatched. And too stubborn to care when we find out, Lisa added. They all drank together. Jake felt the responsibility of command settle on his shoulders in a new way. Not lighter exactly, but more focused. They had proven something out there in the black emptiness of space. They had proven it not just to the Galactic Union, but to themselves. That humans could be trusted. That when someone called for help, humans would come running. Across the galaxy, the story kept spreading. On peaceful garden worlds, families slept easier knowing that humans were patrolling nearby space. In frontier colonies, settlers welcomed human ships with relief and gratitude. Even species that had been worried about the Deathworlders began to understand what they truly represented. Not violence for its own sake, but violence in defense of those who could not defend themselves. Months passed after the stellar wind incident. The Endeavour and her sister ships in the Rapid Response Unit answered 43 distress calls during that time. They fought pirates and rescued stranded vessels. They evacuated colonies threatened by natural disasters. They did what humans had always done throughout their history. They showed up when people needed help. Not every mission went perfectly. The unit took casualties over those months. They lost crew members. Commander Jake Morrison attended 7 funerals in that first year. He stood beside the families of people who had died doing what they believed was right. Each funeral reminded him of the cost of their work. But it also reminded him of the value. Because for every funeral there were hundreds of people alive who should have been dead. Families were reunited. Children were saved. Species who had never known what protection felt like learned what it meant to have someone watching over them. The galaxy was learning what it meant when humanity answered an emergency call. It meant commitment. It meant sacrifice. It meant refusing to accept that some people were acceptable losses. It meant looking at impossible situations and deciding to try anyway. And slowly, other species began to learn from the human example. A Xylanthian cruiser captain held position over a damaged transport for 2 hours against superior enemy forces. He said later that he was inspired by what the Endeavour had done. A Corthan merchant vessel turned back to rescue a rival company's crew from a failing space station. Small acts of courage multiplied across 1,000 worlds. Humanity had brought more than ships and weapons to the Galactic Union. They had brought a philosophy. Every life mattered. No one should face danger alone. The right thing to do was worth any risk. On the first anniversary of the stellar wind incident, Jake stood on the bridge of the Endeavour. The ship had been fully repaired and upgraded with better weapons and stronger shields. They were patrolling a relatively quiet sector of space. For the moment, everything was peaceful. "Sir, incoming transmission," Amy reported from her station. "It is from the stellar wind. Captain Linvara wants to speak with you." The Valaxian captain appeared on the main screen. Her color was bright and cheerful. "Commander Morrison, I wanted to wish you a happy anniversary. 1 year ago today, you saved my ship and my family. I wanted you to know that your example has inspired change. The Valaxian Assembly has created our own emergency response service. We may not be warriors, but we can learn to help others as you helped us." Jake felt warmth spread through his chest. "That is wonderful news, Captain. The galaxy needs more people willing to answer when someone calls for help." "Indeed. And we have you to thank for showing us the way. Safe travels, Commander. May your ship always find those who need you." The transmission ended. Jake looked around his bridge. His crew had become like family to him. These were the people who had faced death beside him and come out stronger. "You hear that? We started something." Dan grinned from the helm station. "Careful, sir. Pretty soon everyone is going to be crazy enough to answer distress calls." "Good. The universe could use more crazy." Jake settled into his command chair. "Amy, any distress calls in our area?" "Negative, sir. Everything is quiet. Then we wait. Somewhere out there, someone is going to need help. And when they call, we will be ready." The Endeavour continued her patrol through the black emptiness of space. She was one ship among many now, part of a growing network of vessels that refused to let fear override compassion. The Deathworlders had answered the call. In doing so, they had changed what it meant to be part of the Galactic Union. Not through conquest or force, but through the simple act of showing up when others needed them most. Every alien fleet that had witnessed what humans would do for strangers felt something complex. Not just fear, but respect, gratitude, and the knowledge that if they ever needed to send out an emergency call, humanity would answer, no matter what the odds looked like. no matter what the cost might be, because that was what humans did. That was what made them different. Not their weapons or their technology or even their ability to survive on a death world. It was their refusal to leave anyone behind, their determination to help even when helping seemed impossible. The galaxy had learned this lesson, and it would never forget. Years would pass. The rapid response units would grow. More species would join, inspired by the human example. Piracy would decrease as criminals learned that any attack might bring a response from beings who did not calculate odds before fighting. Trade routes would become safer. Frontier colonies would expand, knowing that help was always within reach. And through it all, ships like the Endeavor would patrol the darkness between stars, waiting for the call, ready to answer, proving again and again that the most dangerous thing about humans was not their capacity for violence, but their capacity for compassion, backed by an absolute refusal to quit. The stellar wind incident became a turning point in galactic history, not because of the battle itself, but because of what it revealed. Humanity had joined the Galactic Union as newcomers, primitives from a dangerous world. They left that encounter as something else entirely. Protectors, guardians, the ones you called when everything seemed lost. And every time someone sent out a distress signal into the vast emptiness of space, they knew in their hearts that somewhere, somehow, a human ship would hear it. And those humans would come running, weapons hot and shields up, ready to face whatever danger threatened innocent lives. Because that was what Deathworlders did. They answered the call.